Imagine your body is sending you a warning flare. Not pain, not injury, just exhaustion. The kind that doesn't go away with rest. The kind that punishes you after you try. Now imagine being told, just build tolerance, just push a little more. Don't decondition, but every time you try, you crash. Today I want to talk about something that genuinely floored me. Because I've taught pacing for years, but I recently learned there's a missing biological layer for fatigue-related conditions. And it may explain why some people improve with pacing and others keep getting stuck. Intrigued? Let's become more aware together. Let me start with something important. People with ME/CFS or chronic fatigue, long COVID, past, sometimes called long haul COVID, fibromyalgia-related fatigue, post-viral fatigue, some autoimmune conditions, and then also some dysautonomia conditions, all describe versions of the same nightmare. You do something small, you feel okay for a moment, then later, crushing exhaustion, brain fog, body heaviness, flu-like malaise, and worsened pain. This is often called post-exertional malaise. You're not tired, not sore, but there's a system-wide crash. And here's the cruel part. The crash teaches fear. The fear leads to avoidance. Avoidance leads to deconditioning. And deconditioning lowers your threshold even more. That loop becomes a real disease driver. Not because of lack of willpower or because of weakness. It's because there's a nervous system level energy regulation problem. Most people with fatigue get trapped in the boom or bust cycle. Let's say you wake up on a quote, good day. You think maybe that today's the day to turn things around. So you clean, you run errands, you answer emails, you maybe even exercise some. You feel accomplished. Then tomorrow, well, your body collects its debt. That crash can last days, sometimes weeks. So you rest. Eventually, you feel slightly better, and the cycle repeats. This isn't a problem associated with motivation. It's an energy budgeting problem. Your body is operating with a much smaller battery, much smaller than typically we want to have, and much smaller than our environment usually demands of us. But the issue here is no one gave you a new battery manual. Now, in terms of that manual, I've taught pacing to chronic pain patients for a long time, and I've seen something beautiful. When people stop living in extremes and start living in consistent, tolerable doses, pain often becomes more predictable. Flare-ups shrink, confidence grows, and your life expands. Pacing, it works. However, I've also noticed something. People with pain only seem to progress faster than those with pain and fatigue. Pain and fatigue is a much harder road. And this has always perplexed me. It's always vexed me until recently. Now, classic pacing has 3 pillars. There's planning, where you look at your day before it happens. You ask, what actually has to get done? What can wait? Where can I insert breaks? Not reactive living, intentional living. Number 2, there's prioritizing. Not everything deserves equal energy. Some tasks move your life forward. Some make things look nicer. Energy is precious. You spend it where it matters most. And then number 3 is pacing the activity itself, right? So you've got the 3 Ps, planning, prioritizing, and pacing. So with regards to pacing, instead of saying something like, I'll clean until I'm exhausted, you think maybe something different like, I'll clean for 5 minutes, then stop, even if I feel okay. Now, that's the hardest part. Stopping while you still feel capable. But that's pacing. Now, let's be honest. Pacing has pitfalls. It does sound simple. However, people can get stuck in, I think, quite predictable ways. First, they only pace on bad days. Maybe they push on good days. They use symptoms as their only guide. Or maybe they turn pacing into perfectionism. The result is that you're still crashing, you're still confused, you're still blaming yourself or others. Which brings me to the piece that stopped me in my tracks. In many fatigue-related conditions, the problem isn't just your muscles. It's not just motivation. It appears to be impaired energy metabolism and autonomic regulation. So what does that mean? Your body switches too early into stress metabolism or anaerobic metabolism. Before you feel it, before pain shows up, before exhaustion hits. So by the time symptoms appear, the damage, it's already done. Which means that trying to pace yourself based solely on your symptoms might be a losing battle. It might already be too late. You need an earlier warning signal. And that signal might be heart rate. Some clinicians and researchers who are experts in chronic fatigue and long COVID have recommended that you need to stay around 55% of your age-related max heart rate during daily activity. So, a rough formula might be that you take 220 and subtract your age, and that gives you your max heart rate. Multiply that by 0.55. That number becomes your upper activity ceiling, not your training zone, not your fitness zone, your safety zone. So why is that? Because crossing above this threshold may push your body into an energy system that increases risk of post-exertional malaise and flare-ups. You may still feel fine, but the crash is still getting scheduled. Heart rate becomes a canary in the coal mine. It's earlier than fatigue. It's earlier than pain. It's earlier than brain fog. So what does this change about pacing? So traditional pacing says, stop when the symptoms rise. I like to say, when the dogs start barking, that's when you stop. Now, this is a profound shift from that. Pacing based off of symptoms explains why some people thought that they were pacing, but kept crashing. They were unknowingly exceeding their physiological ceiling. Not because they're bad at pacing, not because they're broken, but because their body's warning light comes on too late. There's a phrase that I like that sometimes gets thrown around there called the energy envelope. So what does that mean? Staying in the energy envelope means that you operate within the amount of energy your system can reliably handle without payback. At first, this envelope may feel painfully small. That's emotionally brutal, but consistency beats intensity. When people truly stay inside that envelope, crashes often reduce, baseline stabilizes, confidence grows. Only then does gentle expansion become possible. So how do we gently expand? How do we build? It's not through pushing. It's not through willpower. It's through weeks of stability, then tiny increases. Think, maybe I'll try 30 seconds more, 1 minute more, one extra rep, right? We're thinking small incremental increases. If crashes return, then that's feedback that you overshot it. You didn't fail though. You're gathering information every time that happens. So adjust downward, ratchet down, and use that information to support your healing. So how does this fit the mind-body model? None of this means that it's all in your head. It means that the nervous system is a major gatekeeper of energy, stress, trauma, hypervigilance, poor sleep. All of these are going to raise baseline physiological arousal, which then will in turn shrink your energy envelope. So, using pacing and calming our nervous system together are essential. You can't have one without the other. Now, pacing is not a cure. Heart rate monitoring is not magic. But for many people, it could be a lifeline, a way to stop making things worse, a way to stabilize, a way to reclaim slivers of agency. And sometimes stability becomes the soil where improvement grows. So if you crash after exertion, feel worse 12 to 48 hours later, or if you live in boom and bust cycles, this approach is worth exploring with a clinician who understands fatigue conditions. It's not a miracle, but it can be a helpful strategy, a smarter experience, and maybe a way forward. Fatigue conditions are not laziness. They are not weakness. They are not lack of grit. They are disorders of energy regulation. And when you treat them that way, the story changes. Not overnight, but in a direction that finally makes sense. If this video today spoke to you, or if you know someone else who has chronic fatigue-related conditions who could benefit from this, please like, comment, subscribe, share this video with anyone you feel might need it. And as we do so, we'll all become more aware together, one step at a time.